Welcome everyone back to another video on the channel. So there's a lot of optimism around St Kilda's young stocks going into 2025 and beyond, and that made me think this is a really different kind of time to what we have experienced in the past kind of 5 to 10 years. It's always been a lot of false hope. A lot of our youngsters have failed, but it seems like recently the success rate of our youngsters has increased. A lot of senior players have turned a corner, Sinclair, Wilkie, in kind of the medium term, and I think this all is dependent on the arrival of one man at the club. So I wanted to have a discussion about him, so let's just get straight into it. So we've got the likes of Nazaya Wanganeen, Miller, Mitch Owens, Marcus Windhager, Mateus Philippou, Darcy Wilson, etc. looking to lead the club going forward with their immense potential, but it hasn't always been this way. I think a lot of you guys would recall the likes of Billings, Nunes, Lee, Spencer White, Aaron Sipos, those types of players. All those guys showed so much promise early in their careers and never really lived up to their potential, and that was all prior to the arrival of Damian Carroll as head of development at St Kilda. His arrival was in October 2021. Carroll spent 11 years prior to St Kilda at Hawthorn and Collingwood as some sort of coach. He spent 2 years at the Hawks as head of development and a year at Collingwood as head of development, so definitely a very experienced individual in this space. I think he arrived initially to work with his ex-colleague Brett Ratton from their Hawthorn days, but soon found himself working under Ross Lyon as he arrived in 2023, and started working with new list management as well. So I'll kind of just compare the period of time prior to Carroll's arrival with the period of time post Carroll's arrival. So prior to Carroll arriving, we had, as I said before, Billings, Nunes, Lee, Wright, White, Dunstan, Akers, McCartan, Goddard, and Long. Those guys all selected with relatively early picks, or traded in with early picks, and the club was really banking on their potential being realised, and none of them have been able to make any sort of impact at the club. Billings probably the most prolific contributor, but he's at Melbourne now, not even best 22. So and Nunes was seen as a future captain by a lot, and then Akers, Dunstan, early picks as well, who showed a lot of early promise but faded. I guess Akers has revived his career, but this is at a different club with a different development system, and same for Long, who I guess he showed pretty good early signs, but then fell out of favour, moved to Gold Coast, and he looks to have turned a corner as well. 2024, I think he kicked a bag of 4 or 5 in one of his games. It was a pretty consistent goal kicker for the Suns, so he's kind of improved from that just pure pressure forward to someone who can also hit the scoreboard. So as soon as he left the club, he really improved in that space. But then we think about post Carroll era after he joined. King was kind of struggling early in his career with injury mostly, and he's also been mostly injured throughout Carroll's tenure, so we can't really consider him in this conversation. But Burns is someone who has really turned a corner since Carroll's arrival. Played bulk of games 2024 and 2023. 2022 wasn't as prolific. He has really developed quite well the past couple of years. And then you've got the usual suspects: Naz, Cheeto, Windy, Pooh, Wilson, and Caminiti also, who's come into the system and really impacted, improved quite quickly. And then you've got McLennan as well, and Isaac Hiller, and then there's so many more names we could probably name. But those guys, I think, are the main ones who've really shown a lot of improvement, and I kind of highlight that lift in standards with development with kids ever since Carroll has arrived. And I think another really interesting factor is the success rate of our late picks. So I think if we have a look at this chart over here, I'll go all the way back to 2013. This is when Jack Billings was initially drafted. So he was drafted alongside Dunstan, Akers, Templeton, Weller. Obviously, these guys are no longer on our list. Billings at Melbourne, Akers at Carlton, Dunstan recently retired due to an ACL, but he never really got going at Melbourne either. And then, these guys as well, like Jack Sinclair, the one exception, but he really became elite after Carroll arrived. Prior to that, he was quite average as a young player. And then, all these late picks here, you can see none of them have really turned out to be quite successful. I guess you could say the early picks turned out to be what we expect some of the later picks to be. And then we didn't really have any top-end picks turn into top-end talent. They just kind of meandered in mediocrity. And we see here, like, Ed Phillips showed a bit of promise early, but really never got going either. Marshall, the exception here, because he's become an absolute star. But you can see with the rest of these guys, like none of the late picks, Wilkie as well, they really haven't been very successful, and Burns. But yeah, as I said, Burns, Wilkie, and Sinclair really did thrive under Carroll when he came in for the 2022 season. But yeah, since then, we can see the development of, Sharman as a late pick, Windy pick 47, Mitch Owens 33, academy picks, I know, but they're still like later picks, and they look like they could have a lot of potential at AFL level. Caminiti, a very big example of this. McLennan too. Everyone passed on him in the draft, and we did pick him up because of his NGA links, and he's developed quite well, and he made his debut in 2024, was quite good. Stocker also moved over from Carlton and has really shown that he can belong at the level if he continues his linear trend of development. We've got later picks here, Garcia and Shoemaker. Seems like they could be some real bargains in that draft. So yeah, and then Keeler as well is someone we're hoping can become a really good player for us. At pick 44, there's a lot of potential, and there was a lot of doubts over whether he could actually reach that potential, and I think that's part of the reason why Adelaide decided against getting priority access to him via their NGA. So this could be a big steal for us here. Van Ness and Houghton have obviously been delisted, but if we have a look around their picks, there's not really anyone too desirable around them that we could have picked. So I think that's not really anyone's fault there. That was just a pretty poor draft crop. And I think another one of the major players that is a representation of Carroll's impact is Mason Wood. We could have a look at his stats here prior to Carroll arriving, which was 2021 and earlier. Never really had much of a significant impact on seasons, but as soon as Carroll arrived at this point, 22 onwards, you can see he's played a minimum of 18 games per season and has really taken his game to the next level. So I think prior to that, he was averaging about 11.8 or 11.9 disposals, and post Carroll's arrival, it's gone up to 18.5 to 19 disposals, albeit with goals decreasing from about 1.5 to 0.7. But yeah, he's really become extremely impactful on the wing with that role change. And I think that came when Carroll arrived. So it was a pretty good move by Carroll to move Wood higher up the ground and really leverage his running ability. So that ability for Carroll to identify players' strengths and then play them in the ideal position was really impressive. He was probably part of the reason why Nazaya moved from the wing to halfback as well. I think it was Harvey and Carroll who wanted Owens moved from permanent midfield to permanent forward. So a lot of these position changes and getting the best out of players can be attributed at least partly to Carroll's decision making, and then I think part of his development as well for the likes of Sharman going into defence and then being put back forward as that learning curve has been really effective as well. And another player we can probably look at here is Jack Higgins, who really increased his output following the arrival of Carroll. I don't know if this is just natural development or if it actually has something to do with Carroll changing his game or whatever, but you can see here his goal count. Prior to that, never gone past 30 goals, and then in 2022 he's hit 30 and then 36. So he's goal average went from around 0.8 to 1.7. So he's more than doubled his output after Carroll's arrival, which is really impressive. So I guess that steep of an increase would be a combination of both natural development and just mentor development. So yeah, I think he could have kicked even more goals if he hadn't had those disruptions with suspension the past couple of years. So yeah, Higgins has really lifted his game. And yeah, don't really need evidence for Wilkie and Sinclair, who've gone on to win All Australians and Best and Fairest since Carroll's arrived. So that'll do it for the video. I just wanted to acknowledge the impact of Carroll on the squad. So going to 2025, we're obviously hoping that the 2024 draft class really shines through, as well as the 2023 draft class. We want to see as many games, get into them as possible, and it's up to Carroll and his coaching team to really get the best out of them in their debut seasons or second seasons. But yeah, further beyond that, we want Philippo, Wilson, Nazaya, Windy, Owens to all really take the next level in their games. And if we see that, I think we can really see that Carroll has helped us turn a corner, because this next step that the youngsters are expected to take is the step that, Billings, Nunes, etc. couldn't reach, or Dunstan, Akers. So if they can really reach that, then I think we'll be really well set up for the future. So make sure to leave a like on the video, comment your thoughts on Damian Carroll's impact and your excitement for the future, whether you guys think Carroll can be attributed that much credit, or if there are any other factors that I've missed out on. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for future content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.